With a population of only 900, this picturesque setting already had everything residents of a new city would need: schools, two churches, a bank, a number of stores, including several grocery stores, a weekly newspaper, and it was home to 3 orange packing houses and a very successful juicing company called the Ut Juice Company. The newly incorporated city of Tustin was a beautiful agricultural town where citrus trees ruled. However, at this time, the automobile was quickly becoming more commonplace across the United States. As the 1920s turned into the 1930s, it seemed the landscape was changing to accommodate the automobile traveler, and Tustin was no exception. During the roughly 30 years before the 5 freeway would be extended, anyone wanting to travel north and south through Orange County traveled the U.S. Highway 101, running straight through Tustin on D Street, which is now El Camino Real. As travelers passed through Tustin, they were provided a selection of auto camps and auto courts that offered travelers an alternative to hotels. Travelers could also refill at one of nearly a dozen filling stations located conveniently along the route. Tustin's hospitality and accommodations for weary travelers soon gained them a reputation as a wonderfully friendly community. March 10, 1933 is a day many Southern California residents wouldn't forget. Just before 6 p.m., when many families were preparing to sit down to eat supper, Tustin and the rest of Orange and LA counties were hit by a 6.4 magnitude earthquake. With the epicenter offshore just southeast of Long Beach, the city of Tustin luckily did not sustain any major damage. This earthquake did, however, change the cityscape of Tustin and California forever. Because of the magnitude of the earthquake, new building codes were put in place to help make buildings earthquake safe. The introduction of these codes meant that, sadly, many of Tustin's historic buildings were no longer considered safe and eventually had to be demolished.
It was about 5 minutes after 6, March of 1933. I was 10, my sister was 8, and my dad came home from work at the Santa Ana Register and always took a nap in the afternoon on the couch. My mother was in the kitchen fixing dinner, and my sister and I were working in the kitchen helping to set the table, and all at once the house started shaking very loud, very hard. Scared us to death. My mother grabbed a hold of my sister and I and tried to get out the back door, and it was locked. So in the meantime, my dad was getting his pants on, and he met us at the kitchen door. And then it kind of stopped, but we grabbed each other and ran out the front door, which you're not supposed to do during an earthquake, but we'd never been by one.
After the earthquake, Tustin remained a quiet, prosperous, and friendly town known throughout the region for nearly a decade. Then, on December 7, 1941, Tustin's history would change again with the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor and the United States entrance into World War II. To ensure another surprise attack would not happen on United States soil again, the War Department erected a number of airfields that housed LTA, lighter-than-air, squadrons. These squadrons patrolled the coastlines with manned blimps looking for danger. Just weeks after the Pearl Harbor attack, an airfield location for Southern California was selected. 1,600 acres of farmland that bordered the city of Tustin and Santa Ana would house 2 massive airfield hangars. Each hangar only took about 9 months to build and introduced thousands of new people from the construction and military fields to Tustin. From the end of the war through 1950, Tustin's population had not even doubled from its original population of 900 at Incorporation in 1927. But that wouldn't last too much longer. Through the 1950s, and more so through the 1960s, both the city of Tustin's land and its population grew.
Okay, in 1947, we bought this brand new house, 3-bedroom house, 2 bathrooms, double car garage, large backyard. I think it was either 10,000 or 13. I'm not sure, but I think it was close to 10. But I don't want to say for sure. And our house payments were $36 a month. When we first came, like I say, Tustin had 2 streets. One went down, one came back.
I moved here with my parents in 1955, and we lived on Newport Boulevard up near La Colina. We had 200 rabbits that we raised. Then my sisters had a couple of horses, and my parents were partners in a cabinet shop next to the old hardware store here in Tustin. The building is no longer there.
The city of Tustin saw a 1,012% growth in the 1960s, from about 2,000 to over 22,300, with the city annexing additional land as well, from about 434 acres to over 2,200 acres. Tustin was on its way to becoming a large city at the center of a growing county.
And in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, it was a fairly level growth over the previous decade. But when you get to the 60s, the graph goes clear off the charts, and you can see it from clear across the room. And during the 60s, you have the numbers there, 1,200% growth, and then down through the 70s, 80s, 90s, up to the present day, it came down to about what it was before the 60s.
3 major factors contributed to this growth. First, the men and women from the nearby military bases took notice of how great Tustin was. As they returned back home to their families, many packed them up and headed straight back to Tustin to live. The second was the expansion of the Interstate 5 freeway, which attracted big companies like Douglas, Lockheed, and Hughes to move closer to Tustin. The freeway also allowed people to live in Tustin where they wanted, but have a much faster, safer, and convenient way to commute to their job. The third factor that contributed to Tustin's growth during the mid-1950s, an outbreak of citrus tristeza virus hit citrus farms throughout Orange County and was very costly for the farmer. New jobs coming into Orange County brought families that wanted a nice town to live in. So, as this quick decline disease wiped out our fields, farmers decided it was best to just sell off the land to developers. As Tustin population grew, residents started looking for ways to keep the small town feel alive. In 1957, Bill Moses, the editor and publisher of the Tustin News, and his advertising manager, Clint Caldwell, came up with the idea for Tustin's first major community event, Tustin Tiller Day. The first Tiller Day was a 1-day event and consisted of a parade and carnival. The parade went down D Street, which is now El Camino Real, and ended right next to where the carnival took place on Main Street. Included in the parade was Tustin's new fire truck and the city's first fire truck, which carried the first Tiller Day Queen in her court. Convertibles carrying council members and their dignitaries, along with equestrian groups and some local bands. Now, 60 years after Tustin's first Tiller Days, this annual event has grown to be a 3-day festival enjoyed by the entire Tustin community.
Yeah, I remember the first Tustin Tiller Day parade about 1957. I was about 8 years old. Remember being out in front of the old bank building, watching the parade. There's a picture of me there. I remember the parade. They had a lot of the civic groups there and a couple bands, and mainly the big thing was the Marine Corps band from the base. They also had our old fire engine in the parade. And then afterwards, we went over to the carnival and had rides and games and that type of stuff.
As it continued to grow, Tustin commemorated the 100th anniversary in 1968 of Columbus Tustin's land purchase.
Our centennial celebration was a big deal in the city of Tustin at the time. It was founded in 1868, so in 1968 we had a centennial celebration. During that event, we renamed 3 streets.
As part of that year-long celebration, 3 Tustin streets received new names. D Street became El Camino Real, 4th Street became Irvine Boulevard, and H Street became Centennial Way. One of Tustin's latest claims to fame is the Tustin Chili Cook-Off and Street Fair. Since 1985, Tustin has been home to this fun-filled and family-friendly, albeit a little spicy, event. This Tustin Festival is the world's largest chili cook-off with nearly 35,000 people, close to half of Tustin's total population, gathering to taste hundreds of different chili recipes from home and abroad.
But I walked down here one time for the chili cook-off, and I was so impressed. I told my husband, we've got to go next year. We've got to go. And he says, oh, it can't be that big. It can't be that big. I says, we can't drive down there. You're not going to get a parking space. So many people show up. There's so much music and all these vendors. And it really is amazing because Tustin is one of the largest cook-off, one-day cook-off. And people come from all over to attend this function.
I like sampling all the different chilies. And of course, some of the drinks that they have to go along with it.
Another small-town tradition grown in Tustin is the annual Christmas tree lighting that first began in 1984 at City Hall and since 2010 has taken place at the Tustin Library Courtyard. Hundreds of residents attend this event every year to see carolers, live performances, enjoy refreshments, and experience a visit from Santa himself.
One of my fondest memories during Christmas time was performing at the Christmas tree lighting when I was at the Head Start program at the Tustin Family Youth Center. And I remember being so nervous because I was going to perform for Santa. But once I performed Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and I killed it, and I went over to Santa and he said I did a great job, I felt so much better. And I was just so excited for it to be Christmas and get my really nice gift.
With the city of Tustin continuing to grow, the need for entertainment complexes grew with it. New places to shop, new restaurants to try, and places to hang out and have fun with friends and family. In 1988 and again in 2007, Tustin answered those calls from the public with Tustin Marketplace and the District and Tustin Legacy. From modest beginnings to a prosperous future, Tustin has and always will be a gem in Orange County. Tustin may best be summed up by this January 8th Los Angeles Times article about Tustin. Though first published in 1911, I think the same words could be published today. Tustin is indeed an exceptionally beautiful place. Its beauty is natural, created from the richness of its soil and its copious flow of pure water. Tall poplars and eucalyptus line its streets and avenues for miles on either side, and buried in a wealth of shrubbery and flowers stand the picturesque homes of the ranchers. It is a charming and inviting little community, and nowhere could the lover of rural home life find a more congenial class of people to live among than the happy, prosperous residents of this district.